Yeah, it's hard to know where to start with this story because it's gone on for about 3 years now, but essentially it came about. I was an observationalist for the first year just to see what was happening, and all I can say really in summary, it was a very quiet time for my career. We were sat in urgent care centres, primary care centres, and not a lot going on at the time, so I'd seen an uptick in lots of pathology, and when I say pathology, all sorts of pathology such as blood clots, heart issues in young people, strokes in young people, lots of neurological issues developing in previously fit and healthy people. And so, as you just alluded to, it's my duty as a doctor to raise red flags and should be protected as an NHS member of staff, as a whistleblower. That's what I keep getting told. Whistleblowing should be encouraged. It's a no blame culture, learning experience, etc. I find myself in a long line of doctors and nurses that are being put through the mill, let's say, by the regulator. So I'm about to face a 15-day trial in Manchester. That's trial number 1 of 15, because they keep finding things that I'm saying or not saying online and using that against me. So I seem to have the crosshairs fired on me at the moment, and people were not being given a choice, and they certainly weren't given information. And so those two things together equals invalid informed consent, because you've not been given information. And the coercion element, if you force somebody to do something or issue an ultimatum, then it's not a fair decision. It's safety concerns that I've had, seeing real patients in real time in my clinic that have had blood clots, or one example I remember from early on, nursing home, well, not me personally, but the surgery, and of that 40 residents in that nursing home, and 9 of the people in the nursing home within the next 2 weeks had a blood clot. And I raised that alarm bell and said, look, that's a quarter of the residents ultimately. And there were shrugs of the shoulders, no one seemed to care. And this wasn't Dave Cartland's opinion, it was a death certificate that stated quite clearly. And that was it really. And I got into trouble mainly because I'd started to speak out on podcasts and interviews, because I tried to get my colleagues to take note in the coffee room, privately. Then I tried to do the right thing by raising concerns through the right ways, through practice managers, other senior colleagues, and it fell on deaf ears. This was really early on. And so the next thing to do was raise awareness, in the non-mainstream media, doing podcast interviews. And, I'm a highly qualified guy. I did 2 degrees and medical research for a year in between those 2 degrees, got first-class honours. And I work in a very under-doctored area of the community in Cornwall, where there are no doctors at all. But I can't get a shift. No one will have a conversation with me. That's a concern. Like if we had adult conversations across the table and shared data and debate and evidence either way, in 2020 that went out the window, along with medical ethics, and never to return.
Indeed. What I can't understand is why you're still getting all of this flack when it's pretty well common knowledge that the wasn't fit for purpose and dangerous. So they've actually pulled it off the market and it's come out. So why are you still?
Yeah, so when I heard that headline a few weeks ago, I was waiting for the apologies, the text messages from colleagues to apologise, offer me work, etc. And it's not happened. I would say this, there's been a big awakening amongst colleagues privately contacting me, so doctors, nurses, paramedics that will message me online, social media, and say, we're seeing what you're seeing. All the staff are always off, perpetually off. I'm constantly getting text messages from my GP surgery saying, please only contact in an emergency because all the doctors are off sick. So there's a trend going now in 2024 where people are starting to notice their own ill health or their colleagues and friends and family. So unfortunately it was going to come down to that, a critical mass as it were, of people being injured. Yeah, we've just had the one conversation, haven't we, the one panel, and it was packed full of information that you're probably not going to hear in mainstream. So the message is that of hope, but there are ways to detox from this, and that's what we're going to learn for the rest of the duration of this meeting, ways and means of avoiding the toxicity that's in our environment.
So where can we find you online?
Not many places these days, because for my sins I've been removed from the social media platform. So I'm on Twitter under @CartlandDavid. I've got an Instagram account. So that's about it really, yeah. And I've just set up a new service now under drdavidcartland.com. So hoping to practice in a slightly different way, in which I've become a health coach instead of a doctor, whereby I can impart my knowledge and information. And it's going really well at the moment. Thanks for the chat, and I'll keep going until we get some justice.